Ethan began to regain consciousness, but couldn't quite grasp where he was, either in this world or the next. Something was lodged in his mouth, making it impossible for him to swallow. His eyes felt as if they were filled with sand, and his eyelids were so heavy that they barely opened. A bright light flooded his vision, and everything around him was white. Maybe I'm already dead, he thought. Is this paradise? He mused to himself. Everything felt so quiet. But why can't I wake up? And why don't I feel my body? Suddenly, he noticed a young girl leaning over him, asking, "How do you feel? Can you hear me?" With great effort, he blinked, managing to murmur something that sounded like yes. The girl pressed a button, and the people around him sprang into action. They pulled the tube from his mouth and turned off the sensors covering his body. As he breathed a sigh of relief, he thought, "Phew, so I'm alive." A head doctor in a quirky cap entered, examined him, and smiled. "Well, Ethan, everything is going according to plan, and you have awakened." The surgery had been a success, lasting over 6 hours. There had been many concerns, as the risk of rejecting a foreign organ is high in such cases. "But you were lucky," the doctor continued. "The donor's heart has taken root as if it were your own. It's hard to believe such success. Consider today your second birthday. Now you can live for another 100 years. Ethan managed a weak smile and thanked the doctor for his skilled hands, then asked about his donor. "Unfortunately, I cannot disclose that information," the doctor replied. "And please don't ask such questions again. It's not ethical. Be grateful you survived. Now, you have a rehabilitation period ahead. But for now, just rest. I'll come back to check on you later," he added. As Ethan placed his hand on his chest, he felt his new heart beating strongly. A strange and unsettling feeling washed over him. He was alive now because someone had died, and a part of that person was inside him. He wondered if this would change who he was or if new habits might emerge. Who was his donor? A man or a woman? How old were they? What kind of life did they lead? They were no longer just a stranger. Suddenly, Ethan remembered his daughter, Lily, and tears filled his eyes. He missed his 6-year-old daughter terribly, even though he knew she was safe with her grandmother. He longed to hug his little girl, breathe in the scent of her childhood, and kiss her beloved, fragrant cheeks. Memories of his past flooded back, and his entire life played before him. Ethan had grown up in a wealthy family, the only child. His father ran a shoe repair shop while his mother owned a grocery store. He had grown up in abundance, enjoying the best of everything as the late child in the family. He graduated from university and started his own shoe business, not focused on repairs like his father, but on sales. He prioritized quality over quantity. Everyone in town knew his stores for their excellent shoes. Business slowly improved, and soon Ethan married a wonderful woman named Claire. She came from a simple rural family, but his parents welcomed her, knowing that a modest daughter-in-law would make a good mother. Claire captured Ethan's heart with her affectionate smile and large, sad gray eyes. The newlyweds lived happily and rarely quarreled. Claire tried to please Ethan in every way and was an ideal wife, but she often fell ill for extended periods. Even a slight breeze could give her a cold, and drafts would cause kidney problems. Years passed, and they remained childless. Doctors advised against having children due to Claire's fragile health, and Ethan, loving her deeply, didn't insist. However, Claire had hidden her pregnancy from everyone, knowing they would urge her to terminate it. She longed to be a mother, to kiss her baby's cheeks and cradle her little one with all her love. When she was admitted to the maternity hospital, anxiety gripped Ethan. An oppressive sense of foreboding wouldn't let him be. He chain-smoked cigarettes and paced the hospital corridor, praying as best he could. 9 hours later, he received the devastating news that crushed him. Claire had died on the operating table without regaining consciousness, but their daughter had miraculously survived. At that moment, it felt as though Ethan's life had been cut short, and everything faded away. He was engulfed in grief, but never doubted that he could care for his daughter. Fortunately, Lily was calm and not demanding, as if she understood her father was already burdened. Initially, Claire's mother, Grace, came to help care for the baby. She stayed for a month, teaching Ethan the intricacies of looking after a newborn. After that, she often returned whenever he called. She was undeniably a good woman. Now Lily was 6 years old, and Ethan had been complaining about his heart for the last 2 years. At times, he experienced sharp pains or rapid heartbeats. He struggled with shortness of breath, making even simple household tasks difficult. One day, his condition worsened to the point that an ambulance was called. During the examination, doctors discovered inoperable complications with his heart and that he urgently needed a transplant. However, finding a suitable donor often took months or even years, and many died before the operation could happen. No amount of money could change that. Additionally, the business required his attention, and Ethan couldn't prioritize his health. A month ago, he was hospitalized again, and he called Grace, who immediately took Lily to her village. With no one else to leave her with, Ethan's condition deteriorated, and even IVs and supporting medications couldn't save him. Then a true miracle occurred. He was informed that a suitable donor had been found, and preparations for emergency surgery were underway. Now that he had regained consciousness, he was alive. Everything was ahead of him, but that other person would never open their eyes again, and only their heart continued to beat inside him, a constant reminder of this reality. Upon his discharge, Ethan approached the doctor again, eager to learn the identity of his donor. But he was met with refusal and reprimand. "Why are you trying to make us commit a crime? It's against the rules to disclose that information, and that's final." Nonetheless, the thought settled firmly in Ethan's mind, refusing to let him rest, day or night. As soon as he arrived at his mansion, he called his mother-in-law to check on his daughter, speaking to her for a long time. "Daddy, I'm so glad you're better. When can you come for me?" Lily exclaimed. "I've missed you so much and just want to go home. Grandma is nice, but home is so much better." Holding back tears, Ethan reassured his daughter, "Just a little longer, my sweet girl. Listen to your granny and help her with chores. I'll get better soon and come to you right away." "I miss you so much, my little kitten," she replied. Soon after, calls from work started flooding in. While Ethan had been sick, his deputy, Logan Pierce, had taken charge of the company. Ethan recognized Logan as a competent professional, but he wasn't exactly a person of integrity. Ryan, the head of procurement, began updating Ethan on the happenings during his absence. "I'm glad you're feeling better, but I'm worried," Ryan said. "With Mr. Pierce running things, we're heading for trouble. My instincts never fail me. He almost made a deal to buy low-quality Chinese materials at a ridiculously low price, trying to pass them off as premium leather. Luckily, I caught it in time and didn't sign anything. We would have lost a lot of money otherwise. Just the other day, I bumped into him at a cafe, chatting with our main competitor. What could possibly connect them? It doesn't look good. Please get better soon. I'll keep my ears open." Ethan was taken aback. "That's strange. You didn't mention any of this before. Thank you for the heads up, Ryan. I trust you. We'll stay in touch." The following day, Ethan decided to take a leisurely stroll through the park, as the doctor had advised him to gradually acclimate his heart to physical activity. He watched the colorful, fallen leaves rustling beneath his feet, enjoying the cheerful atmosphere. Suddenly, a boy around 7 years old dashed up to him. Dressed in a blue jumpsuit and a crooked hat, he looked amusing, clearly from a less fortunate background, but clean. The boy's mischievous eyes sparkled as he handed Ethan a note and shouted, "This will help you find out the truth." Before Ethan could fully process the moment, the boy vanished into the bushes. Confused, Ethan unfolded the crumpled piece of paper. It bore an address, 45 Redwood Street. That was all. It was unclear whom it was for or who had sent it. Yet something about the boy felt familiar to Ethan, though he couldn't pinpoint why his heart raced as he made his way to that address, unsure of what he might discover. The house was small but well kept, with a barking dog in the yard. Ethan knocked on the door, feeling awkward about what he was about to say. He had only received the address from a boy in the park, so how could he explain himself? It all seemed absurd. An elderly woman with a neat short haircut answered the door. Before Ethan could explain, she interrupted him, pulling him into the house. "Hello, Ethan, my son. You've finally come. I was beginning to wonder if you would ever show up. Come in, take off your coat. I'll put the kettle on." Sitting down, Ethan felt utterly lost. "Ma'am, are you okay? I'm not your son." I know, she replied. "But you have nothing to do with them." "What are you talking about? I think I must have the wrong address." "I'm sorry." The woman began to cry. "Wait a minute, please. Listen to me. You're my real brother. I gave you his heart, whether you understand it or not. He died 3 weeks ago. Look, here's his photo. My Noah. I am your real mother. My name is Sophie. I gave birth to you and him. You are twins. Do you understand?" Ethan blinked in disbelief. "Not really," he admitted. "I grew up with the Crawford family. They owned a store and a shoe workshop. I've been living with them for as long as I can remember. I even have a photo of my mother holding me as a baby. How is this possible?" The elderly woman began to cry again and shared her story. "You see, my son, I'm an orphan. I grew up in an orphanage, alone in the world. After I left the orphanage, I worked as a painter on a construction site, living in a dormitory. Then we were hired to work on an apartment for a handsome, wealthy man. I was young and naive, and I fell in love with him. He wooed me with sweet words, flowers, and candy, and seduced me. But then everything changed, just like in a soap opera. I got pregnant, and he immediately pretended he didn't know me or have anything to do with it. To him, I was just a worker, not even his equal. I hid my pregnancy until the very end, even lifting bags of cement while carrying twins. Where could I go with 2 children? I had no place to live except that dormitory. I cried and sobbed, unsure of what to do. I even contemplated suicide. Then a friend suggested I reach out to the Crawford family. Everyone knew they were childless and desperately wanted a baby. So I threw myself at their feet and shared my story. They agreed to take one of the babies, and they chose you. They had plenty of money, and they processed all the paperwork confidentially, getting me to sign a statement promising never to interfere in your life. They compensated me handsomely, allowing me to buy necessities for little Noah like a stroller and baby clothes. "And that's how you, Ethan, ended up with them," Sophie said, tears streaming down her face. "I gave you away to strangers with my own hands. I often thought of you and cried, but life gradually improved. I got married a year later, but it was too late for regrets. So you and your brother lived separately, unaware of each other. I never dared to tell my husband the truth," she replied, her voice heavy with sorrow. "He passed away without ever knowing. He loved Noah as if he were his own son. He never harmed him. Our son was a good boy, kind, caring, and simple. If anyone needed help, he was always there. He married a lovely girl and worked as a taxi driver. 3 years ago, he decided that after his death, all his organs could be donated. It was as if he had a premonition. 3 weeks ago, he was killed in a car accident. He was exhausted and fell asleep at the wheel. I still can't believe it. I keep waiting for the door to open and for Noah to shout, 'Mom, I'm home.'" The elderly woman concluded her story, sobbing uncontrollably from grief. Ethan was taken aback. "I'm so sorry for your loss. Losing a son is a profound sorrow. But who is that boy? The one who gave me the note in the park?" Sophie sighed deeply. "He's Noah's son, your nephew. Now he's almost an orphan. I don't know how to break the news to him. He thinks his daddy just went away and will be back soon." His endless questions cut like a knife to my heart. Ethan was stunned once more. "And where is the child's mother? Did Noah have a wife?" Sophie cried again. "Of course. Rachel was a wonderful woman. She worked as a bookkeeper at a company, always worrying about her job. She often took reports home, hoping her efforts would be appreciated. Instead, her devious boss set her up, accusing her of fraud, and she received a 5-year sentence for supposedly making a phony deal and pocketing the money. But it's pure slander. No one nearly attacked her boss in court. Everyone knew Rachel was incapable of such wrongdoing, but no one could prove it. Now she languishes in prison for something she didn't do, and she's seriously ill with tuberculosis. The doctors say it's a severe form, and she doesn't have much time left. My son's family has been struck by such cruel fate. Only troubles and disasters have followed them. And that scoundrel, her boss, is living the high life, driving fancy cars and changing mistresses like clothes. He doesn't care about anyone but himself. How can such villains exist? Noah worked 3 shifts, even drove a taxi at night, tried to save enough money for a good lawyer to help Rachel. But he ran out of time. Ethan struggled to process the overwhelming information. How did you find out who received your son's heart? That's confidential information. I asked the chief physician multiple times, but he refused to discuss it. Sophie replied, I have a friend at the hospital who helped me. I begged her until she finally took pity on me. When I saw your name, I felt sick. It's incredible that one brother gave his heart to the other, saving his life without even knowing it. Stunned by the revelation, Ethan took a moment to gather his thoughts. So, what do you want from me? Money? You rejected me all those years ago. I'm sorry, but I can't call you my mother. Another woman raised me and loved me. Why do you want to find me now, after all this time? Sophie lowered her gaze. Forgive me, my son. Maybe you're right. I shouldn't have started this. I promised not to interfere in your life. I see that now. I just feel so sorry for little Leah. I can't bear it. Everything has fallen apart. Her father is dead. Her mother is dying in prison. I'm getting old, and I fear I won't be able to help my grandson. So I thought maybe you could assist. After all, he's your nephew. I apologize for bothering you. Goodbye, my son, and forgive me for everything. Ethan sighed. All right. I'm sorry for being rude. It just slipped out. Did I say I wouldn't help? I just need some time to think. You have to understand, I'm still in shock. Finding out in an instant that my donor is my brother, that his wife is on the brink of death, and that you are my mother, it's all too much for me. My head is spinning from all of this. Let me collect myself and figure out what to do. I'll find out everything about his mother and let you know. Your son's heart beats inside me, and I owe him my life. Don't worry. I won't abandon you. I'll help. I promise you that. We're not strangers at all. I just haven't come to terms with everything yet. That night, Ethan slept poorly, dreaming of the little boy with the lively, mischievous eyes, his nephew. What would happen to him now? His grandmother was aging, and everything with his mother was uncertain. He felt a deep sadness for the boy. I should find out everything tomorrow, he resolved. No time to waste. It's strange how my life changed so dramatically after the operation. Suddenly, so many relatives appeared at once. And my mother. Ethan's head was spinning. But now he understood why the heart had taken root so well. It was almost like his own. Oh, Noah. Thank you, brother. Using all his connections, Ethan managed to get Rachel's case reviewed despite his lingering weakness. He visited her company, questioning her colleagues, and speaking with the new accountant and the secretary. People like them always knew more than the others. By offering money, Ethan obtained reports and documents from the time when Rachel allegedly committed fraud. He took them to a handwriting expert who conducted an independent examination and revealed that someone had skillfully forged Rachel's signature on those documents. The secretary disclosed that Logan Pierce, at that time, had executed a significant illegal deal and had implicated Rachel, claiming she had organized everything to enrich herself. Ethan was shocked. This was his deputy. It turned out he was thriving on all fronts. Now it became clear to Ethan why Logan could afford such an extravagant car and even a yacht. Ethan himself couldn't afford those luxuries, as he reinvested most of his profits back into the business. Just a couple of days after his conversation with his mother, Ethan found an investigator who was meticulous and incorruptible. Soon enough, the wheels began to turn. The case was reviewed, and Rachel was exonerated. All charges were dropped, and she was released. However, it was too late. Rachel was gravely ill, and they immediately transferred her from the prison hospital to the intensive care unit of the TB dispensary. Despite the best doctors tending to her, nothing could be done. Tuberculosis had ravaged her lungs, and she coughed up blood almost every half hour. Rachel could barely get out of bed and was running a fever. Ethan was not permitted to see her due to the highly contagious nature of the disease, but he was given her farewell note. He brought it to Sophie. Fortunately, Max was at school. They sat in the kitchen, hands trembling as they unfolded the note and began to read. Ethan, I don't know you personally, but I've heard that it was you who worked miracles to free me from prison. It's a pity it's too late. Still, I am immensely grateful that my son won't have to grow up with the stigma of a convict mother because I am innocent. It was all orchestrated by Mr. Pierce. He supervised our company, and I was just a pawn in their dishonest game. I swear on my son's health that I didn't sign anything. I'm not crazy. It's all a forgery. I repeated this 100 times in court, but it was as if they didn't hear me. I hope those people experience everything I went through within these walls. And you, Ethan, I beg you, on my knees, I implore you, don't abandon your nephew, my little son. My mother-in-law is a wonderful woman, but she's already old. It will be very hard for her to raise him alone, especially now that my Noah is gone. One thing comforts me. We will reunite soon in heaven. Bury me next to my husband. That's critical to me. Mommy loves you very much. Always remember that. Listen to Grandma and Uncle Ethan. They're your closest family. I will watch over you and take care of you from above. I hug you tightly, my sweetest baby. Both Ethan and Sophie wept. Sophie sobbed uncontrollably, while Ethan swallowed his tears in silence. Why is everything so unfair in life? He whispered finally. Why can't anything be done? Why should he be left alone without a mother who loves him so much? Just like my daughter, Lily. Why do children have to suffer so? Sophie asked quietly. Do you have a daughter? You didn't mention her, son. Would you mind if we met her? She's with my mother-in-law in the village, Ethan replied. I took her there when things got terrible for me. I'll have to pick her up soon because she misses me so much. My wife died during childbirth, so it's just me and my daughter now. She's the most important thing in my life. Why would I be against family? The next day, Rachel passed away in the hospital. Ethan made sure she had a dignified farewell. Sophie insisted that Lee should be informed about his mother's death, but Ethan strongly disagreed. That's wrong. Give your grandson the chance to say goodbye to his mother. He needs to understand and accept this. Otherwise, he won't forgive either of us for this betrayal and lie. And he also needs to know about his father's death. I don't know how to do it, but it has to be done. After all, parents won't come back or be resurrected, and the child will live with false hopes. Can you imagine how he'll feel when he eventually discovers he was deceived? Gently, Ethan tried to explain to Lee what had happened. He told the boy that his parents were now in heaven, like angels watching over him and loving him, but that he couldn't see them. Inside, however, Ethan felt like he was breaking down, a lump forming in his throat, while his brother's heart raced in his chest, as if supporting him during this difficult conversation. But you know, Lee, I'm your real uncle, and Sophie, your grandmother, will always be there for you. You're not alone. We're in this together, understand? You need to be strong. But for now, it's okay to cry. Sit next to your mummy. That's what you need to do. Later, when you grow up, you'll remember this sad moment as one of the most important in your life. Besides, I have a daughter, Lily. She also lost her mummy, and she misses her too. But together we cope. And you will too. Come here, my little nephew. Let me hug you. The boy snuggled up to Ethan, and it warmed his heart as if he were embracing his own son. The child cried bitterly, sitting quietly by his mother's coffin for a long time, speaking to her as if she could hear him. Meanwhile, Ethan had already decided to take Lee home with him. He felt a tremendous responsibility for the boy's future. A week after Rachel's funeral, Ethan went to the village to get his daughter Lily, who immediately jumped into his arms. But Ethan just groaned, kissing, hugging, and stroking her curly locks. In the village, Lily looked like a mischievous little rascal in oversized pants and a too-big jacket, all dirty but happy and tanned. The man laughed heartily. "My dear daughter, you look like a chimney sweep. Where's my little princess? Who's this little gnome? Come on, wash your face, change your clothes, and let's go." Then Ethan turned to his mother-in-law. "Thank you for looking after her. Did she misbehave too much? I'm sorry I didn't pick her up earlier. I was still weak after the surgery, and everything happened so fast. My head is still spinning." The elderly woman laughed. "Oh, come on, Tommy. My granddaughter brings me nothing but joy. She makes everything more fun, and time flies by. Look how rosy her cheeks are from the fresh air. You brought her to me from the city like a wilted flower, and now she's shining. We get along well. She's a good girl. Smart, too. How about you?" Thank God, everything ended well. I prayed so hard to God, begging him not to take my son-in-law away from my daughter too early. She's already without her mother, and I don't want her to end up an orphan. Don't just stand there. Come sit at the table. I'll feed you and send you off with my homemade treats, milk, sausage, and strawberry jam. Ethan sat down and enjoyed the potatoes and pickled mushrooms with sauerkraut, praising everything. "Oh, you're the best. You're a wonderful woman. Thank you for everything. I wanted to talk to you about something. So much has happened in my life over the past month that my head is spinning. I need you to listen and give me advice on what I should do according to your conscience." Ethan shared everything with his mother-in-law, how his mother had found him, about his brother, and how adopting the boy felt like the right thing to do. "I approve of it. Just don't rush it. Let the children get used to each other first. Bring the boy over for visits." Then she added, "As for your mother, don't be angry with her, Tommy. You can't change the past. That's her burden to bear. She likely couldn't do anything differently when she made that decision. But you weren't mistreated. She didn't put you in an orphanage. She placed you with a good, wealthy family. I remember your parents very well. They were wonderful, honorable people who adored you. You were never deprived of love. So what's the issue? Since she found you herself, it means she's struggling. She misses you. Don't push her away. Support her. Try to understand and forgive her and accept everything as it is." Ethan felt uplifted. "Thank you for your wise advice and for the delicious dinner. Well, let's head home with my daughter. The journey isn't short." They said warm goodbyes, and Ethan took Lily home. She was happy, chattering excitedly all the way, entertaining her father with tales of her adventures in the village. A few days later, Ethan invited Lee and his grandmother to his home. He worried about how Lily would react to the boy. Would she be jealous? He didn't want Lee to feel uncomfortable in a strange house. To prepare, he bought and cooked a turkey and gathered gifts and sweets for the children. At first, the little boy was shy, but Lily quickly warmed him up. The kids became fast friends, enthusiastically assembling jigsaw puzzles and racing around the house, playing hide and seek for the first time since the funeral. Lee must have been laughing, momentarily forgetting his troubles. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief as he watched the children have fun. He had a long and heartfelt conversation with Sophie, during which she shared stories about his brother, how he grew up, how he met his first love, and how he had eagerly anticipated the arrival of his son. Ethan showed his mother childhood photos and pictures of his wife, expressing how much he missed her and how difficult it was to raise his daughter alone. No matter how he looked at it, Lily still craved her mother's touch and affection. Towards the end of the evening, Ethan decided to surprise the children. "Kids, come here. I have a surprise for you," he called out. "I'm giving you both roller skates, and I suggest we go to the park on Sunday to learn how to skate." A joyful squeal erupted, and Lily and Lee rushed to unwrap their gifts, their happiness boundless. Sophie threw her hands up in surprise. Ethan, that's such an expensive gift. Thank you. You'll spoil my grandson. What will I do with him on my pension? You won't have to raise Lee alone, Ethan replied. I was thinking, why don't you come and live with me permanently? What's the point of us being lonely separately? It'll be more fun for Lily and easier for me. I'm always at work. Before, I had to hire a nanny for a few hours to keep my daughter from being home alone until I returned. This way, you can look after her. Think about my offer until the weekend. Okay, I'm family now, she said, relieved. Oh, Tommy, I'm not angry or offended. We need to move forward. Sophie was taken aback. Thank you, son, for your kind heart. This is a bit embarrassing. I don't even know Lee. Do you want to live with Uncle Ethan and Lily? The boy nodded eagerly. Yes, I like it here, and Lily will be my little sister. That's wonderful, Sophie sighed with relief. All right, then let's give it a try. My grandson doesn't mind, and for me, it's a joy to live under one roof with my son and grandson. We'll move in on the weekend. Ethan quietly observed Lily's reaction. She suddenly frowned and pressed her lips together, as if sensing the changes ahead. After all, she had been used to receiving all her father's love and attention, and now there was a brother in the picture, along with a grandmother she had never known. Ethan didn't make promises lightly, and soon they all began living together. Surprisingly, he and his mother got along quite well, suggesting a thread of kinship still connected them, however thin and invisible. However, the children often thought Lily was jealous of Lee for their father's affection. Whenever Lee climbed into Ethan's arms, she would immediately clamor for his attention, not allowing Lee any chance to capture their father's focus. Before long, Lily began dividing toys into yours and mine. Lee would grow sadder each time, feeling left out. The situation was escalating, and Ethan knew he had to take drastic measures. Lily was stubborn and jealous, but she was also responsive and honest. One day, he took both kids by the hand and said, "Get in the car. Today will be a sad but essential day for both of you. It's time to grow up. Let's go." He spoke so sternly that the kids fell silent, not uttering a word the entire ride. They arrived at the cemetery, and Ethan brought both children to his wife's grave. "Look, Lee, Lily's mom and my wife are buried here. Now tell me, daughter, are you happy without your mom? Don't you wish you were here to hug and comfort you? It's sad when everyone at school has a mom, but you don't, right? I'm right, aren't I?" Lily lowered her head. "Yes, Dad, it's true. Even though I love you more than anything in the world, I miss my mommy." Lee watched silently, confusion written all over his face. Meanwhile, Ethan said to the children, "Get back in the car. This isn't over yet. Don't ask anything. You'll understand everything soon." He drove the children to another cemetery, and once they arrived, he took them to the fresh graves of Rachel and Noah. Speaking sternly to his daughter, he said, "Here, Lily, is where Lee's mom and dad are buried. His parents died just a month ago. You have me, but Lee doesn't have anyone. Do you understand? It's cruel and foolish to throw tantrums and be jealous. Think about how your brother feels. Remember, you two are siblings. You must always stick together, no matter what happens. Support, love, and respect each other. I love you both equally and will always be there for you. Now I'm a dad for both of you." Lee couldn't hold back his tears, remembering his mom and dad, while Lily suddenly hugged him tightly, whispering, "I understand everything. Forgive me. I won't do it again. Now we have everything in common. Our toys, books, and Dad says he loves us equally. Don't cry. Here, take this candy. It's my favorite, but I'll give it to you." Lee smiled, wiped away his tears, and Ethan sighed with relief. He had questioned until the end whether such shock therapy was necessary for the children. After all, they were still quite young. But at that moment, he realized it wasn't in vain. The man smiled and said, "Well, kids, let's say goodbye to our loved ones and let them rest in peace. I suggest we cheer up a bit. Let's go feed the ducks at the pond, take a walk, and eat ice cream. Who's in?" The kids cheered and hurried to leave the cemetery, eager to escape the sadness and gloom. "Just don't tell Grandma where we went," Ethan added, to spare her feelings. "Let's keep it our little secret." They spent the whole day together sailing paper boats, and in the evening, Ethan taught the kids how to skip stones beautifully into the water. They all enjoyed a delicious dinner cooked by Sophie, sharing stories about their adventures. The woman asked quietly, "Ethan, how did you manage to bring the kids so close together? Where did the jealousy go? I should knock on wood so I don't jinx it." Ethan laughed sadly. "I just spoke to them honestly, and they listened. After all, we're raising smart kids." As the tensions at home subsided, Ethan decided to put things in order at his company. He bought several video cameras and installed them in the deputy's office, the common smoking area, and the reception area. He wanted to ensure he caught Logan in the act, so he wouldn't squirm his way out of trouble. No one knew about the cameras, and that was the point. A week passed, and Ethan intentionally went to the office on Saturday when no one else was around to review the recordings. When he saw what was happening, his hair stood on end. Logan, lounging with his leg crossed, was on the phone with someone. "Don't worry, everything will be fine. This fool, Ethan, expects nothing. I'll give him these papers in a few days. He'll sign them without a second thought. Do you know how many documents he signs in a day? One more or less won't be noticed. As soon as his signature is on there, it's a done deal. We'll make it look like he sold his store in the city center for a pittance. And if anything goes wrong, we'll pin it all on his secretary, Tina. We'll say that stupid woman typed the document incorrectly. It's not the first time something like this has gone smoothly with the accountant, Rachel. This will work out too. So you owe us a bottle of Dom Perignon." Ethan realized he had signed a whole stack of papers without even glancing at them. Just yesterday. What a fool he had been. Had he really sold the store without even realizing it? He rushed to the reception area, searching for the document, but couldn't find it. He was nearly in tears when he remembered the camera recording in the reception area. It showed Tina calling Ryan, the purchasing manager. "Ryan, come here. Everything is just as you said. I've hidden the sales agreement, so come and get it to keep it safe. Otherwise, Mr. Pierce will be looking for it soon." As soon as Ryan took the agreement and left, the deputy director entered abruptly. "Tina, is the director in? Did he sign today's papers? Can I get mine?" The girl answered casually, "Yes, of course. They're all in the blue folder." Logan rummaged through everything, growing angrier as he couldn't find the paper he was looking for. He yelled in a voice that wasn't his own, "Tina, it's not all here. I urgently need one document. Did you take everything from his desk? Or are you just being a clown?" Tina calmly replied, "Don't yell at me. I took everything that was there. If your document isn't here, maybe the director is still reviewing it. Do you want me to ask him? What's the name of the document?" But Logan just grumbled, "No need. He's reviewing it. I'll come back on Monday." Ethan breathed a sigh of relief and immediately called Ryan. "I know everything, Ryan. How did you figure it out?" the man asked, sounding pleased. "Because I've worked for you for 10 years, and I know you wouldn't sell the best store in the city center for a few pennies. Tina and I took that document, intending to bring it to you on Monday, so you could decide what to do next." Ethan was absolutely furious. I believe it's high time Logan faces the consequences for all his tricks. It turns out this isn't the first time he's pulled something like this. An innocent person has suffered and even died because of his actions. A child is now left without a mother, and he shows no remorse. This scoundrel will get what's coming to him. And Ryan, I truly appreciate your help. You know what? Get ready to be my right-hand man. I need loyal people like you by my side. Plus, I'm giving Tina a raise. Thank you both from the bottom of my heart." On Monday, Ethan took all his evidence to the prosecutor's office, and finally, the deputy director was held accountable for his crimes. He had been under investigation for quite some time, doing everything he could to evade punishment. However, his antics with the prosecutor didn't work, and this braggart couldn't escape justice. Rachel's last wishes were honored, and Logan Pierce was handed a substantial sentence. Now, he would experience life behind bars and learn the true cost of his misdeeds. In fact, it wasn't just Rachel who suffered and died because of him. It was also Ethan, his brother. He was so desperate to save his wife that he fell asleep at the wheel. If not for this whole mess, their family would have been living peacefully and raising Lee. 3 months passed, and the family was finally coming together. The kids got along and formed a strong bond. But one day, while Grandma wasn't watching, the two young adventurers decided they were old enough to walk home from school alone. They didn't wait for Grandma and, tricking their teacher, left on their own. On the way, they figured they would feed the ducks at the park pond. They had some bread stashed in their backpacks. Lily became so engrossed that she got too close to the edge. The ground gave way beneath her, and she fell into the chilly October water. Panic set in as she realized she couldn't swim and began to drown. Lee quickly tossed off his backpack, ripped off his jacket, and shouted, "Hang on," as he dove into the water. Unlike his sister, he was a capable swimmer, and by the time onlookers arrived, he had managed to drag Lily back to shore. Bystanders called an ambulance, and the children were taken to the hospital. I'm going to give them both a serious talking to. That's for sure. Ethan was swearing on the way there. How could they deceive their teacher and worry us like this? Sophie just moaned, clutching her chest. Oh, Tommy, don't be too hard on them. You didn't always behave well as a child, did you? Just a little scolding for their own good. Lily and Lee sat in their hospital pajamas, whispering together. When she caught sight of her father's stern expression, Lily stood up bravely. "Daddy, don't scold me. It was all my fault, so just punish me." But before she could finish, Lee burst out from behind her, eager to take the blame. "Uncle Ethan, I'm a man, so it's my fault. It was my dumb idea to go to the pond. She had nothing to do with it. Please forgive us." "We were terrified," Lily added, not allowing Lee to take the fall. "You know, Daddy, Lee saved me. I was screaming and drowning, and he pulled me to shore. He didn't let me die, so he's definitely my real brother now." Ethan's heart warmed as he witnessed the bond between the children and how much they cared for one another. Instead of scolding them, he sat on the bed and pulled them both onto his knees. "Oh my God, Granny and I were so worried about you too. You're my silly kids. Promise me you'll never do this again. And apologize to your teacher. She's going to be furious with you. Remember, lying is not okay. You need to listen to adults." "Well done, you're a true hero. You didn't hesitate, jumping into the freezing water to save your sister. But next time, please call an adult." Just then, a pleasant middle-aged female doctor entered the room, looking sternly over her glasses. "So, the moment has finally come. Let's talk. How did you lose track of the children?" Lily and Lee immediately chimed in. "Dr. Smith, please don't scold Dad. It's not his fault. It's Granny's too. We should be the ones in trouble." The woman couldn't help but smile at their closeness. What a tight-knit family. Everyone's covering for each other. I've never seen anything like it. Ethan listened, unable to take his eyes off her. She was so charming and charismatic that he felt drawn to her. Despite her attempt to maintain a serious demeanor, her eyes sparkled with warmth, indicating her genuine affection for children. Dr. Smith kept adjusting a lock of hair that had slipped from under her medical cap, then asked, "And where is the children's mother? Why hasn't she come?" Ethan let out a sigh. "I've been a widower for 7 years. My wife passed away during childbirth, and I'm raising my daughter on my own. Lee is my nephew. He lost his parents recently, and I'm looking after him too, hoping to adopt him. Don't think I'm irresponsible. Work takes a lot of my time, but Grandma always comes to help with the kids. The school is nearby, and they're good children. But today, they decided to show off, and that's how they got into trouble. Are they really okay? The water in the pond is freezing." Dr. Smith regarded him differently now. Just an hour earlier, she had been upset about him letting 7-year-olds wander to the pond alone. But now, she admired him for raising 2 children by himself. Not every woman could manage that, let alone a man. Suddenly, she proposed. If you like, you can take the kids home. As an exception, I've checked them over, and they're fine. Tomorrow, I'll stop by again on my way home to check their lungs one more time, just to be safe. Ethan's face lit up with a smile. He hesitated to leave, but didn't know how to start a conversation, so he eagerly agreed. Thank you for your understanding, Dr. Smith. We'll definitely look forward to seeing you tomorrow. The next day, Ethan cleared his schedule, skipping work to spend the entire day in the kitchen with the kids at home. Dr. Smith arrived around 5 o'clock. Ethan welcomed her with chatter and excitement. Good afternoon. Please come in. We just finished making some chicken stew. Would you like to join us for lunch? You look lovely. Dr. Smith blushed. No one had complimented her in years. Thank you. I'd be delighted. I've been on my feet all day and haven't had a bite to eat. Where are my patients? I need to examine them. Lily and Lee beamed at the sight of the doctor. They immediately took a liking to this warm, cheerful woman who radiated calmness and kindness. The kids were all fine, and soon everyone gathered around the table to eat. Mary savored the delicious stew. Joyce, this is fantastic. You managed to raise your kids, cook so well, and run a business. Are you even human? Sophie chuckled quietly, and the children giggled while Ethan turned crimson. Unfortunately, despite all my accomplishments, we still lack a lady of the house and a mother for the kids. After a brief pause, he added, Mary, would you like to take a walk in the park this weekend? We started a tradition of feeding the ducks at the pond and roller skating. Or are you too busy? Mary's heart raced as she replied too quickly. You know, I think I'd love to. I haven't had a chance to walk around in ages. It's just work and home for me. I'd be happy to join you. Is it okay if I bring my dog? His name is Baron, and he's a poodle. Otherwise, he'll be lonely at home. The children cheered. Of course, bring Baron. Does he know any commands? Maybe we can play ball. After Mary left, Lily turned to her father, a sly look in her eye. Daddy, you should really consider Dr. Smith. She doesn't have a ring on her finger. Laughter erupted around the room, and Ethan couldn't help but ponder. Why not? After all, what if this was fate?